there will be some code in this presentation. If you're not a programmer, that's fine. Feel free to ignore those slides. We'll have Etherscan screenshots as well, and I'll walk you through them. So, yes, this is my ETH address, ENS name. Before we go through that, wrong pocket. Let me grab this out. So I've got my wallet, and if I scan my credit card with my phone, there is some information I can get off it, namely amounts and dates that I made transactions. There's not much else. So, you know, worst case, if someone steals my credit card, they can kind of see how much I've spent in the last month or so. And probably not much else because I'm going to cancel it pretty quickly. But let's say they get my ETH address. Let me get the next slide. Cool. And you can look it up on Etherscan. I think there's an airdrop of ENS tokens in there. 50-ish dollars worth of ETH. I mean, not much. This is probably on the safer side, but you know, some people might have a lot of ETH. Well, there are a lot of ETH addresses with a fair amount more ETH than that. Get to the next slide. My nightmare. I would not like to receive a text like that. Next slide. Or that one. I know the date's wrong. Look, I'm Australian. We do dates in the sane order, smallest to largest. Look, fight me. We can take it outside later. Next slide. Well, that one. So these are all things that you could gain just by knowing my ETH address. This is my public ETH address, so thankfully it doesn't have all that much information about me, but there's a lot more that you could gain if you got one of my personal ETH addresses that I don't disclose publicly. I tend to spend crypto a lot because, of course, I mean, I'm writing crypto code. I need to walk the talk, so use it. Can we get to the next slide? So from the public address, you can see I've got a couple of POAPs there. There's a couple of recent ones. So anyone watching that address knows that I'm at DeFiCon. If they were watching it a bit earlier, there's Burning Man on Mars back in Lisbon. They know I attended the Keeper DAO community call. They know I work for a DAO because I've taken the DAO Workers Survey. There's an Ethereal Summit, and just off the screen, there's EdCon over in Sydney. So, you know, you could probably put together a decent timeline of where I've been. This would be even worse if you got a private ETH address, which clearly I'm not sharing up on the stage. Next one. So let's look at someone a bit more interesting. I mean, I'm not really that cool. Mark Cuban, though, I mean, he's a bit of a personality. I could see people being interested in him. So this is his ETH address. We can see a couple of interesting transactions down the bottom. We get to the next slide. One that I'd like to highlight, we see there's a approval to trade XMON on Paraswap. Okay, interesting. I wonder if he's going to sell it. Next slide. Of course. All right, that's no good. I guess I know when one of, I don't actually know what XMON is. I assume it's a Pokemon thing, but whatever that token is, I just, you know, can look ahead of time when one of the big investors is going to sell. It's probably not good for their project. Next slide. And of course, Mark did notice that people on Twitter were talking about his ETH address because he inadvertently revealed it when he talked about the NFTs that he owned. So he moved the funds to another address. Next slide. There's his new address. There is 20K of ETH in there, about 250K of various tokens. That's 189. I don't think he's bought all of those. Those are probably people sending random airdrops to him just to promote their project. But, you know, things are as they are. And I can see what projects he's been interacting with. You know, about 20 hours ago, I think the screenshot's about 2 hours old, so like 22 hours ago, he was interacting with the Polygon Matic bridge. So clearly, if ETH were to get, you know, where we hope it would be, and get any sort of adoption, having this sort of information publicly accessible to anyone that you send a payment to, receive a payment from, just some random guy at the coffee shop that you bought coffee from with ETH, not great. You don't want them having this information. If you're using ETH a lot, they probably know about as much as Facebook does about you. That's not good news. So it would be good if there was a way to hide your transactions on ETH. Next slide. Oh, I forgot about this one. These are POAPs that are in Mark Cuban's wallet. So you can see that he attended these two events in 2021. All right, there we go. So here's a bit of code that I warned you about. This is a simple ETH transaction, which I was going to do a live demo, but it turns out we can't get a HDMI input here on the stage. So screenshots from prior to the presentation, but I did end up executing this. This just simply sends a small amount of testnet rail to Mark Cuban's wallet. We get the next slide. But I mean, this is kind of obvious that I sent testnet rail to Mark Cuban's wallet. The from address there is the same as my ENS domain. I don't want that to be known. I want to secretly send it to him. So that's not great. If we go to the next slide. All right, so now I guess I got to introduce Railgun. Railgun is a way to interact with smart contracts or just simply transfer ERC20s and soon NFTs privately on ETH. So you can, you know, there are advantages to having a layer 1 dedicated to privacy. But one of the drawbacks of that is layer 1s, if you create your own layer 1, you've now got to bootstrap the activity on there. Whereas there's a lot of activity already on ETH. You've got Uniswap, you've got Compound, SushiSwap. I mean, that takes a while. Like ETH launched in 2015, you know, it's 2021, 6 years, right? Takes a while to get to that level of usage. Probably quicker now because people are more familiar with smart contract platforms, but still not going to be that quick. So the code behind me, Lepton, is the SDK for Railgun. So just a quick walkthrough. We load Lepton, load in a wallet, define an output, and execute it down at the bottom. If we go to the next page, this is a deposit transaction into Railgun. So we've got point however many zeros, 65372 testnet rail being deposited into Railgun. And I mean, that's all good. You can still see that it's from my ETH address. If you look at the from field, and you can see the amounts and all, there's not really any way to hide deposit transactions, unfortunately. So we've got this. But if we go to the next page, we can do a transfer within Railgun. So again, this is using Lepton. It's the first component. Instantiate Lepton at the top, load the wallet, of course, define an output, do create a transaction, and then submit it using a normal ETH address. And if we go to the next slide, we can see how that looks on Etherscan. So the amount is no longer shown. We can no longer see that it's transacting testnet rail, but we could do better. There's still the from address. So people looking at the blockchain can still see that it's me making a transaction. And maybe that's more information than I'd like to give out, because it's still possible to create like a transaction graph, and maybe you could find out that, you know, if I was transacting often enough, or as it's transacting in a obscure token, this would give you enough information to still figure out that it was me sending a transaction and withdrawing or whatever. So that's not great. We want to hide as much as we can. If we go to the next slide. All right. People that are following our Telegram room are going to like this. It's hidden behind the couch, though. That's not good. Okay, going from the top. Create Lepton instance, load a wallet, create an output. For this demonstration purpose, we're just sending test rail back to ourselves. Create a transaction, submit it, and back underneath the couch, the what was a submit with a normal ETH wallet is now replaced with a submit with a relayer. So we go to the next page, and we can see what a relayer does. If we look at the from address, that's changed. It's no longer my address. That is the ETH address of the relayer. And the reason it's the ETH address of the relayer is because what a relayer does is it takes a transaction, in this case, a Railgun transaction, and instead of signing it with the user's private key, it signs it with their own private key. And presumably they do this because they're getting paid in exchange. But it has the other benefit for us of actually hiding the from address. So the only information available now is, well, we can see a transaction happened. We don't know that it's me transacting. We don't know what token it is. We don't know the amount that I'm transacting. We just know someone sent something somewhere. If we go to the next transaction. Sorry, next slide. Clearly the bourbon's kicking in already. Again, from the top, load Lepton, load a wallet, create a transaction, but instead of defining an output within Railgun, this time we're set withdraw, which you could probably guess what that means. It means we're withdrawing to an address, mark Cubans in this case, and we submit it. Oh, wow. I think I put the wrong code on here. That's meant to show submit via relayer. Okay, that's fine. Just pretend that last line is the same as the last line from the previous slide. And we're all good. All right, next slide. And we see, again, from address is the relay is. So we can see that someone sent however many zeros that is, 255 ETH to Mark Cuban. But we don't know who that someone was. So we've successfully gone through, deposited some testnet rail, sent it to myself in this case, but probably to someone else. Most likely to Mark Cuban's Railgun address. And then we've drawn it. And we've broken the link on chain. So if we back up a bit on the slides, let's keep going back, all the way back to Mark Cuban's Etherscan. Going, one more. Great. So in Mark Cuban's case, he's made a transfer transaction to a new ETH address because I'm guessing he was a bit concerned about people on Twitter stalking what he was doing on ETH. Yeah, it would be very convenient if he had a way to transfer funds to a new address while breaking the chain, breaking the link on chain. Or it would be convenient if he didn't have to have a public ETH address at all. So if we go back right to the last slide. Cool, that's a demo code. I think I've forgotten a slide here. I have. Okay. I was meant to demo how to interact with a smart contract using Lepton. Okay, go back one. Another one. Great. So pretend we've loaded Lepton, we've got the wallet ID. And now this transaction, instead of withdrawing over here, we have a transaction.adapt ID equals, and we have a contract address with some parameters, and then the rest can be the same. And what would be on the next slide is a transaction interacting with a smart contract specified where the withdrawal address is, with the parameters specified where the withdrawal address is, and doing cool DeFi stuff. I don't know, maybe swapping on Uniswap. I don't think, is Uniswap on Ropsten? Maybe. But that would be what you'd see. That would be what you'd see. Anyway, now we can go to the actual last slide. SDK, that was used in the demo, link up the top. Code that was screenshotted, minus the errors, because it generated the transactions that were screenshotted from Etherscan. You can find it at that link there. Cool. Project name, Railgun. And enjoy the open bar on Railgun.